Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, doubters, pouters, and invective shouters, welcome along to the Joe Spiver YouTube channel, where we discuss books and little else. And welcome back to another of my bookshelf tour. I am going to be, I've taken some from the stack, and I'm going to be detailing them for you in my lovely lit living room. But just first of all, thank you ever so much for all of the birthday messages that I received over the weekend. Many antics were undertaken, yes, many transgression was committed. But thankfully, the authorities are pretty much satisfied, or at least have been persuaded to believe, that I was not intricately involved in the commission of any crime. The court cases have been thankfully fended off. Any victims have been placated and mollified. The graffiti has all been washed away, thankfully, folks. So, yes, all is well. So, yes, thank you ever so much for all those birthday messages. That was cheering, shall we say. But, yes, let me just begin by saying that, yes, I'm going to be announcing my read-along yet again. I'm going to be reiterating it with more specificity this time. Of course, we are reading the life and works of the 6th Baron of Newstead, George Gordon Lord Byron. And we're going to be using as our first book of reference, we're going to be reading Fiona McCarthy's perfectly serviceable biography of Byron, written not so long back. So yeah, if the videos aren't going to be coming out until probably early next week, so if you're wanting to, get ahead, then of course you can purchase a copy or get a copy online. And we're just going to be reading, there's an introduction by Fiona, and then the section is going to be Childhood and the East, which runs to about page 139, 140. So I could probably get a garden hedgehog or tortoise, teach it to read, hand it Byron Life and Legend, and it would probably be able to read to 140 by next Monday or Tuesday. So no excuses, folks. I'll be thwacking you around the back of the back of the body and trapping your fingers into the desk if you have not done it by that point. So that's Byron Life and Legend, to page 140. Childhood and the East, which is going to be significant. This is, of course, involved in my bookshelf tour today, which is why it's close at hand. But yeah, let's get on to it. First of all, we have Philip Larkin, a selection of poems selected by none other than Martin Amis. Philip Larkin, first of all, is a darling of this area, really, folks. He was a resident of my native town of Kingston upon Hull for a great many decades, I believe. He was a librarian at the university, for example. I know somebody who was in security at the University Library about the same time, and I think probably had a few coffees with him and sort of stroked hands at the printer, as it were. So yeah, he's immortalised in the train station. Just as you go and scan your ridiculously extortionate ticket, he's there in. Goodness knows, what do they put statues in these days? It's all black, it's all really quite sullen. And that's pretty much what I found the poetry to be like, unfortunately. This is a scandalously thin volume, because Larkin was, I think, famously really rather slow and tortoise-like in his output. But yeah, I mean, perfectly serviceable stuff. It's never I'm never drawn to Larkin's poetry. It's never as if, what all the greats do, which is to seemingly document 10 or 15 years of your life, and to have watched all the CCTV footage and read all your greeting cards and watched you in your finest and darkest of hours, and then have produced something that seems purpose-written for you and tried to universalise concepts, yada, yada, yada. That has never happened to me with Larkin. I've never fallen in love with it. I admire it and would, champion and cheer it, but it's not something that I'm continually drawn to. What have we got in this particular? Obviously, Amis is one of my not favourite writers, but one of my one of the reasons for which I am jabbering away at an iPad at the moment. And he was, Larkin was dealing out, the halfpennies and the pastries at the breakfast table of Kingsley Amis, and therefore Martin Amis. Amis was probably, biting his ankles in what will have been maybe the 50s or something like that, 50s and 60s. So Amis knew Larkin, and I'm just reading The War Against Cliché now, in which he extols the virtues of Mr. Larkin, and I just don't see it, unfortunately. We've got, so Philip Larkin, his life and work. We've got a bit of an introduction. From the North Ship, we've got Dawn. From The Less Deceived, we've got Coming, Next Please, Going, Once, Church Going, At Grass, I Remember, and then we've got all the Whitsun Wedding stuff. But Larkin's works don't really scan up very often, they don't really rhyme, so all of the, for which I'm called a poetic Calvinist, all of the highly wrought technical stuff is sort of there and sort of not. So yeah, that's Philip Larkin poem selected by Martin Amis. Next up we have Christopher Lash, The Culture of Narcissism. What an attractive cover that is. The international bestseller, As Explosive as Future Shock. Now, that's not a great simile for me because I don't know how explosive Future Shock was, but I'm sure you guys will comment and tell me. So this is a book, I don't know when the hell this was brought out, but it's a very old copy in and of itself. I think this may date back to the 70s or the 80s. And yeah, it is a fiery, bristling, if somewhat dull analysis of the increased insularity and essentially just self-prioritization of millions and millions of people. This was essentially, he puts it down to sort of disestablishment of religion and of mass secularization and a bit of television, mass television. Everybody thought that the one show was going to rip us all to bits. But yeah, it's nice. Obviously, it talks about the infantilization of everybody else as well, and how many sociology and English courses now cater for people who haven't read anything so much as a greeting card since they were 17. And yeah, things like that. It wasn't, obviously it's not nearly as futuristic and as contemporary as a similar study would be nowadays, but stands the test of time. There are many underlinings, many head nods from Spivey there. Just for example, this point needs to be fleshed out a little more. So yeah, The Culture of Narcissism, what does he split it down as? We've got schooling and the new illiteracy, the degradation of sport, the banality of pseudo-self-awareness. Yes, so it's all very good, nice thin thing as well. So yeah, you can get through that in a weekend if you so wish. Next up, we've got D.H. Lawrence's Lady Chatterley's Lover, a Penguin classic, one of my lovely canonical treasures. That is somebody either doing up or about to unbuckle his belt and engage in some very primal connubial bliss, I am sure. Constance Chatterley feels trapped in a sexless marriage to the invalid Sir Clifford. Unable to fulfil his wife emotionally or physically, Clifford encourages her to have a liaison with a man of their own class. But Connie is attracted instead to Mellors, her husband's gamekeeper, with whom she embarks on a passionate affair that brings new life to her stifled existence. Can she find true equality with Mellors, despite the vast gulf between their positions in society? Goodness me, folks, it's almost as if the working class, the middle class and the upper class are all of the same species. So yes, I remember enjoying this. I haven't read it for a good long while. I need to have another go. I need to refresh myself and have a reread. But such, 'twas ever thus. Such is the case with everything these days. Lady Chatterley's Lover. Next up, we have Stanislav Lem's The Siberiad. This is a bit of science fiction in a Penguin modern classic. There is the aforementioned Lem there, looking puzzled, curious, altogether trepidatious. In the strange, surreal world of this... Again, I haven't read this actually, folks, believe it or not, an admission. In the strange, surreal world of the Siberiad, outlandish events abound. Two ingenious constructors travel through a medieval universe offering their technical expertise. A machine capable of creating anything that starts with the letter N meets an untimely end. Kings oppress their people with parlour games, and PhD pirates demand ransom in knowledge rather than gold. That sounds a bit kaleidoscopic and psychedelic, doesn't it, folks? So that's Stanislav Lem's The Siberiad with an introduction by Christopher Priest. Any of you... Space Age. If it is proper science fiction stuff, then you science fiction SF eggheads, please do let me know whether it's worth my time. So that's The Siberiad, Stanislav Lem. Great name, that, isn't it? Anyway, next up we have Quentin Lett's 50 People Who Buggered Up Britain. Now, I don't know, again, some of my demographers tell me that you guys are predominantly American from the shores across the Atlantic. And you may not know what it is to bugger up means. It is derivative of, in vernacular, to bugger up now essentially means to render useless, to destroy, to mess up. But the original derivative will be for the sodomization of a homosexual, essentially. The buggers and to bugger things up was to engage in homosexual practices, which of course was viewed askance for very, very many years, as I'm sure you're all infinitely aware of. For such a work that is supposedly... Therefore, I know there are satirical... what are these? They're not skeuomorphs, they're... just sort of satirical hot pieces on the front there. It is meant to be a serious work, given that he is diagnosing the problems that have beset Britain. This is quite a few years old now, so this is pre-Brexit. But for something that's supposed to be so serious, the phrase bugger up strikes me as just a little bit careless and a little bit unnecessary, unfortunately. But yes, but that's Quentin. We've got Princess Diane here. Yeah, who exactly does he blame? There's a bit of Tony Blair, there's a bit of Alistair Campbell, Ian Blair, Tony Blair, David Blunkett, Gordon Brown, Diana, Alex Ferguson. I don't think that's the former Manchester United manager. Graham Kelly, Rupert Murdoch. There are many more, but I'm missing them out. Margaret Thatcher, Alan Titchmarsh, a harmless gardener, Webonymous, Tim Westwood, who's a DJ. So yes, I'm sure Mr. Letts is clutching at straws and trying to fill a word count. But yes, again, it's been many, many years since I read that. When I was a proper sexless Politico, that was when I bought this. I would never do such a thing nowadays. But yes, look, that's the first pile. Next up we have a book that you've already seen in this video. This is Byron, Life and Legend by Fiona McCarthy. Something that I'm not going to dwell upon, seeing as that we're going to be tearing through the thing in the next 3 weeks, probably 2-3 weeks. But yeah, Byron's life sort of speaks for itself, really. You don't have to do an awful lot of work. Yeah, he was precocious and adventurous and daring and wealthy, all of those things which can, lead you down the road to rack and ruin. And yeah, as I say, you don't have to do an awful lot of work as a biographer, I don't think, of Byron. You've just got to steal the show with your voice. And Fiona manages to do that. She tries to tie the Napoleonic edge with Byron. He is inextricably linked in scholarly circles with the sort of the Napoleonic New Age, about a sort of heightened romanticism, a disestablishment, or not a repudiation of that which is given, and establishment views and priggishness and properness, all the things that I now stand for in a world of hedonistic abandon and mindlessness. But anyway, so that's what she tries to needle at and get at. But yeah, a really, really nice biography that I'm going to enjoy going through with you guys in the next few weeks. Next up we have Katherine Mansfield's Selected Stories. This was urged upon or planted into our satchels whilst I was an undergraduate in a Russell Group University in the north of England. I don't remember an awful lot about it. Virginia Woolf was not the only writer to admire Mansfield's work. Thomas Hardy, Lawrence, Elizabeth Bowen all praised her stories, yada yada yada. This selection covers the full range of Mansfield's fiction, from her early satirical stories to the subtly nuanced comedy of The Daughters of the Late Colonel, and the macabre and ominous A Married Man's Story. The stories that pay what Mansfield calls a debt of love to New Zealand are as sharply etched as the European stories, and she recreates her childhood world with modern insight. So any of you prominent feminist critics that have probably taken Katherine Mansfield under your wing, please tell me if this is worth my time. But you haven't quite got to that as of yet at time of recording. Next up we have Richard Marsh's The Beetle. A few famous things, but this was released in the same year as Dracula was, and I don't know whether it was a side along of that, but when again this was forced upon us at university, and whenever we were analysing it, it was put beside Dracula for some sort of, I don't know, thematic consanguinity or something. I have no idea. Thrilling horror novel. Essentially, it amounts to a few people wandering around London, and there is one person who is very clearly of Arabic origin, with kind of, a susurrating robe with, glimmering gold all about him, and you keep sort of spotting him in an alleyway, and he keeps sort of launching himself through the sash windows and keeps terrorising a young and sightly woman, all that type of, the typical much regurgitated tropes of Victorian horror novels. But yes, it's really, really nice thing. I always remember the line from Paul Lessingham, which is, a fool does more harm with his folly than he does of malice prepense, which I always wheel out when talking to conspiracy theorists, which is my daily want. So yes, that's Graham Marsh's The Beetle. When was this, 1897 or something? Yeah, really, really rather good. Obviously, it talks about what Conan Doyle always refers to, which is your transgressions abroad following you home, and it turns out that somebody has done wrong in, I think it's Egypt. Yes, Egypt, ancient Egypt, the depths of ancient Egypt. And we actually had an Egyptologist come and visit us during a lecture from the local university at the time. So it was actually quite an interesting week. They gave us a whole week to read 400 pages of a novel. That just goes to show how little tertiary education now requires of you. So that's Richard Marsh's The Beetle. Next up we have, goodness me, who planted this here? The Communist Manifesto by Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. This is gnomic, boring, useless, irreverential, needlessly resentful, adversarial, wrong-headed, misguided, stupid, any other negative pejorative that I could produce. It's unreadable, it's not scholastic, it's sticky and just full of solecisms and all sorts of wrongdoing. It completely misapprehends how it is that the world, the economic and financial world is run. And of course, this has pretty much been it's been disowned by even people who are sort of a little bit more hospitable to Marxian political theory. They now rely upon Das Kapital rather than this. Presumably, that's what they've got. Clinging to their hips rather than this. But this also comes with a load of stuff on the young Hegelians and old Hegelians and Ludwig Feuerbach and many other unpronounceably Germanic names. And it is, a complete, and it just makes your eyes and ears bleed, folks. And if you ever think that there are some pearls of wisdom in there, good Lord, open your eyes and go and look at something else. Any Marxists in the comments, do feel free to let me know if late stage capitalism is about to come into being. But yes, this is just not good, unfortunately, as I'm sure you can tell, for a sort of right of centre young social conservative. It's not in my wheelhouse, I think would be putting it nicely. Next up is Owen Matthews' Overreach. This is talking about, what does it do? Putin gives the signal the Russian army invades Ukraine. What was going on inside the head of the world's most secretive leader? Why did he take such an unprecedented gamble? Unprecedented, okay. People think that, I am embarrassingly ignorant of all of the things that are going on in Ukraine at the moment, just as I am embarrassingly ignorant about the things that are going on in the Middle East, folks, as well. But this is, talking about the origins of the war, I think. It was advertised on The Rest is Politics by none other than, his name is going to evade me, Rory Stewart, there it is. A very weird, not an owlish man, but sort of, I don't want to use a cliche, but he's a bit of a rabbit in the headlights. Yes, I haven't quite got to this. This was given to me by my father for Christmas. I just haven't got to it yet. Nice, chunky hardback. That's the back of it, looking down the battle of artillery or a tank. And so it's I get a free audio ebook download with this, so quite why it is I haven't got to it, I'm not sure. But yes, that's Overreach by Owen Matthews. Just a few more, folks, hang in there. This again was given to me by my dad. This is Hitler's last day, minute by minute. Some of the diary entries. General Mohnke is summoned to Hitler's room in the Führer bunker. Hitler is sitting in a chair beside his bed, wearing a black satin dressing gown. On top of his nightshirt and soft leather slippers. He wants to know the latest on the Russian position. On all sides, they're within a few hundred yards of the Reich Chancellery, but for now their progress has been halted. How long can we hold out? 20 or 24 hours at most, apparently. I particularly remember coming to this when I was looking on, I think Goebbels came to Hitler's room really at the 11th hour and started reading out some sort of Periclean myths or something. They started reading tales of Alexander the Great and all of these things about, leaders being saved by fatalistic, turns of chance and fancy at the last minute. And that brought me to this. And then, I think I essentially just appropriated this from one of Dad's shelves and haven't let him know about that until now, I don't think. Either that or he got it for me for a birthday. Either way. It's readable. Jonathan Mayo and Emma Craigie. Jeremy Vine called it Beyond Fascinating. This book brings to life 1,000 different people in the most dramatic moment of the last century. Last two books, we're just going to skittle through these. We've got Ian McEwan's Atonement, which has become the preserve of the book talkers and some girlies on BookTube that otherwise would absolutely detest the sentiments and existence of much of Ian McEwan's literary circle, the Amoses, the Hitchenses, the Robert Fentons and the Salman Rushdies of the world. But this has got traction with them. I enjoyed reading it. I wasn't spellbound. I knew what it was doing, and it was ticking boxes and adhering to those widely agreed upon prerequisites of a good novel with a capital G. It wasn't speaking to me. I didn't enjoy it, but I was nodding along and appreciating it and thanking McEwan for writing. So that's Atonement, and then last but not least we have The Egoist by George Meredith, another Christmas buy. that I haven't managed to get to. I read the first page and was a little bit bamboozled, actually. I'm used to the sort of circumlocution and the cornices and the misdirection of Victorian literature. But yeah, this seemed a little bit, even by that standard, it seemed perplexing. It's got a very glossy cover. It's struggling to focus here. But yes, I haven't quite read this yet. Rich, handsome, aristocratic, looking for a wife. That's Willoughby Patten on the front there, who is befriending a live one, I think would be the phrase. But yes, that's been another bookshelf tour, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you ever so much for watching. I think that just about covers me for today. And the sun is already beginning to set, even though it's yet 2 p.m. So yes, thank you ever so much for watching, folks, and goodbye.